In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro discusses the end of Joe Biden's presidency following a report by special counsel Robert Hur investigating Biden's mishandling of classified materials. The report suggests that Biden is not mentally competent and lacks functioning brain capacity. Shapiro describes Biden's frequent mistakes and nonsensical statements, highlighting a recent speech where Biden confused terms and displayed signs of cognitive decline. The special counsel report reveals that Biden kept classified documents, including marked documents about military and foreign policy in Afghanistan, and notebooks containing sensitive intelligence sources and methods. Despite evidence of mishandling classified information, the Department of Justice decided not to prosecute Biden. The report cites Biden's willful retention and disclosure of classified materials, as well as his knowledge of the illegality of keeping such documents. Biden's defense is based on the claim that he thought the documents were his personal property and that previous presidents had done the same. The most damning aspect of the report is the revelation of Biden's significant memory limitations and cognitive decline. The report details Biden's struggles to recall events, including forgetting when his son Beau died and when he was vice president. Biden's memory issues are evident in recorded conversations with his ghostwriter and during his interview with the special counsel. The report highlights Biden's hazy memory and lack of precision in recalling important events and discussions. Biden's legal team disputes the report's characterization of his memory issues, claiming that it uses prejudicial language and lacks accuracy. They argue that Biden's memory lapses are a common occurrence among witnesses and should not be used against him. However, media personalities like Jake Tapper expressed skepticism about Biden's defense, pointing out his recent gaffes and memory lapses, such as confusing deceased European leaders with living ones. Tapper emphasizes that voters are concerned about a candidate's competence and mental faculties, not just their ability to recall names. The podcast continues by analyzing Joe Biden's press conference, which Shapiro describes as the most disastrous in presidential history. He notes that Biden appeared to be struggling with his faculties as he slurred his words, made factual errors, and seemed to lack coherence in his responses. Shapiro highlights moments where Biden failed to remember key details, such as where he got his son's rosary, and made inaccurate statements about his handling of classified documents. Throughout the press conference, Biden's responses were incoherent and lacked clarity. Shapiro points out instances where Biden rambled and failed to address questions directly. Biden's attempts to defend himself and assert his mental acuity only served to highlight his struggles, as he made contradictory statements and failed to provide convincing explanations for his actions. Shapiro also discusses Biden's lack of control during the press conference, noting that he appeared overwhelmed by the questions and struggled to maintain composure. Biden's physical and verbal cues indicated that he was not in command of the situation, further raising doubts about his fitness to lead the country. The podcast includes criticism of Biden's performance from various sources, including the media and political commentators. Shapiro highlights how Biden's press conference was widely viewed as a failure, with many questioning his mental acuity and ability to lead effectively. He also points out that Biden's performance has raised concerns within the Democratic Party about his viability as a candidate in the upcoming election. The podcast continues with a discussion of former President Donald Trump's response to Biden's press conference. Trump criticizes Biden's mental acuity and leadership abilities, suggesting that he is unfit to negotiate with world leaders and handle international crises. Trump's comments reflect broader concerns about Biden's performance and raise questions about his ability to effectively govern. Shapiro continues by addressing the comparison between Donald Trump and Joe Biden's mental acuity. He highlights concerns about Trump's impulse control, but argues that suggesting both men are equally close to senility is untrue. Shapiro points out that Trump had a successful day, watching Biden stumble politically and the Supreme Court ruling in his favor regarding the Colorado ballot. Shapiro discusses the recent Supreme Court hearing where the justices questioned the argument that Trump should be removed from the Colorado ballot. He highlights Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Gorsuch, challenging the arguments presented by the lawyers. Despite the debate over the term insurrection, the Supreme Court ultimately ruled in favor of Trump being on the ballot. Shapiro analyzes Tucker Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin, where Putin presents a revisionist view of Ukrainian history and justifies Russia's actions in the region. Putin denies invading Ukraine and claims to be working towards unification. However, Shapiro points out the discrepancies in Putin's narrative and highlights Russia's aggressive actions in Ukraine and other neighboring countries. During the interview, Putin denies having territorial aims and questions why the U.S. is concerned about Ukraine. He suggests negotiating with Russia and reaching an agreement to end the conflict. However, Shapiro raises doubts about Putin's intentions and points out Russia's history of aggression in Eastern Europe. Shapiro notes that Putin fails to provide a clear answer on how to end the conflict in Ukraine. Despite Tucker's question about potentially conceding to NATO, Putin deflects and blames the West for the current situation. Shapiro emphasizes the importance of understanding Putin's true intentions and the need for a diplomatic resolution to the conflict. Shapiro transitions to discussing the Senate's potential approval of aid to Ukraine and Israel. He explores the political dynamics surrounding the decision and the implications for U.S. foreign policy. Shapiro highlights the importance of supporting Ukraine against Russian aggression and maintaining strong ties with Israel in the Middle East.